Hello, hello, and welcome back to the Heal with Grace podcast. Today, we have another really empowering, really amazing testimonial story. Someone who has healed from chronic illness that she honestly can't even remember a time where she didn't have symptoms or illness. She has dealt with this since she was very, very young, like a small kid, and started working together and used the mind body healing method and had some private sessions with me. And she's just made so much progress and like a true transformation that it's really beautiful to hear. And so I'm excited for you to hear this. If you are someone who has dealt with any kind of digestive issues, including IBS or like truly anything with the gut, or any kind of brain fog, you should 100% listen to this because she's going to tell you what she experienced and how she moved through it. She's truly healed some of those symptoms. And this is just going to be really important to hear. And then also, I just wanted to note and highlight that we have started new updates to the Mind Body Healing Method program. There's more individual support, there's more overall support in our program. Alex actually mentions the course in her episode, in this episode, and she's talking about the mind body healing method. She did all of the modules and skills and the practices, which really helped her heal. And so I cannot tell you how excited I am about the updates that we have because it's been really getting people so many results to heal their chronic pain and illness symptoms and not just manage, like truly be able to do this in easy processes, easy, simplistic steps, which actually she talks about too, some of the ones that really helped her. So, if you're interested, if you've been thinking about it, find the link below for the mind body healing method and let me know if you're interested or go ahead and apply. And would absolutely love to have you. All right. Without further ado, here we go. Hi, Alex. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I'm really excited to have you.
Of
Welcome.
course. Thank you. I'm honestly honored to be here. So thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, I'm excited today because I think your story is and what you've dealt with symptom wise is not always talked about in terms of like mind body world. We know stress affects so much, obviously, but to really come as far, I think that you have is really important for people to know, and especially from where you started. So, without me going farther into it, why don't you just share a little bit about you, maybe where you live, and we can go from there.
Okay, well, hi, I'm Alex. I'm based in Austin, Texas. I've been here for almost 2 years now, and I've actually lived in a couple different places all over the country. So this has been a good move for me. I am in a creative work field, so I'm a trend forecaster by trade. So that's really fun. It's a fun day job, but I'm also really passionate about holistic health and wellness. So it's kind of my hobby to learn about all things related to the body and the mind. So super excited to be here. And of course, to meet Grace, and all the work that you've done has been fascinating to learn about.
Yeah. And how did you come to this work? How did you find me first? Did you find like mind body neuroplastic work? I forgot.
Yeah, that is actually a good question. So I found you first. So I think at the time I was dealing with some health anxiety. I was specifically looking for a therapist who would understand that side of things. And so I think I literally searched holistic therapist and found you, and then learned about mind body and how much deeper all the work was than I was expecting.
Yeah, as we usually do. I have no
Hmm.
idea like actually what it entails or what it means.
Yes.
So, okay, let's jump in then. What exactly were you experiencing? Oh, not only just health anxiety, but anxiety around what? Like what were your symptoms before we started?
Yeah. So I guess we started working together about a year ago now. And at that time, my physical symptoms were really centered around pretty debilitating brain fog.
Mm.
And then I'll call it chronic digestive distress. It's like my my favorite term. I think when I look back over my health journey, like my symptoms have ebbed and flowed and changed over, my entire lifetime. But when we started working together, I feel like those were the main two things that
Mhm.
just like never seemed to go away, no matter how hard I tried.
You've had digestive issues since you were a kid, right? Like that's been most of your life.
Yes. Yeah. I've tried to think back through like when they started. And honestly, I can remember being in elementary school and having to stay home because of stomach problems. So There's rarely a time that I could remember things being normal.
Yeah. The amount of years since being a kid, you went through so many different treatments.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. I think the digestive discomfort honestly was kind of like a backseat to most of my symptoms. Like growing up, I experienced chronic illness starting really young. So this idea of there being something broken or something to heal or fix or something's wrong with my body and I have to diagnose it, like that has been a mentality that I've had. I mean, truly since I was a wee little one.
How do you think learning that so young, like there's something wrong with my body, there's something wrong with me, how does that shape you?
It's a big question.
I know.
I think it has definitely led me to identify a lot with my symptoms or my illness, consciously and subconsciously. Um, I think this idea of my body being able to heal seemed really foreign to me. And I think I felt like I always had to rely on an outside force or an outside intervention to be able to bring me health. So whether it was a doctor or a test or a supplement or something, it felt like I needed all of those things to be able to be healthy.
Yeah. And I mean, even the term healthy, right? Like that can become, I mean, I'm putting words in your mouth. So tell me if I'm wrong, but can become an obsession, right? Like what is actually healthy and what does that look like? Because there's so many different definitions of it, right?
Yeah. Yes, that is true. And it kind of becomes a little bit of a checklist of you need to do all of these things to be healthy. I think there's a part of me too, like when you asked how long I've been experiencing digestive discomfort, like that kind of had become just a norm to me. Like I kind of accepted the reality that this is just my body and that is healthy to me, is going like that is my health, is just struggling with that constantly. Yeah. So the idea of like truly being healed always seemed like really far away, I guess.
That it's so common, especially if you've dealt with any kind of chronic illness or pain, symptoms really that we get to a point where you kind of have to accept it, right? And there can be some relief in that instead of trying to fight so much, but you're still trying to help yourself. And that's not a bad thing. Like, of course, help yourself, right? But then I think it becomes your identity too. And like you're just in it. And
Yep.
that's
Yeah, it's like constant thought. Like when we first started working together, I don't know how much of my brain space during a day was devoted to scanning for symptoms, looking for them, trying to solve them, anticipating when they would hit, worrying if I was doing enough. It just is this constant background noise. I don't even think I realized how often it was occurring until I started being a little bit more mindful and like getting deeper into this work. But it was hard to picture a day where the word symptom or stomach or brain fog didn't pop into my head.
Can you tell us more about exactly like what the brain fog was for you and how much it affected you? Because I think that you're right, that was a really big one at first.
Yeah. I feel like this was the symptom that was the most frustrating to me. I think it's
Mhm,
also difficult to describe.
mhm,
But it almost felt like my brain shut down in a way that I couldn't fully be present. So I feel
mm,
like most of the time when I'm describing it to other people, I tell them to picture, when you start staring off into space and your eyes kind of glaze over. It felt like that was my life all of the time. Like I couldn't focus. I couldn't focus my brain. I couldn't focus my eyes. I was like stumbling over words. I was aware that I was trying to form a thought, but I would lose it so often. And I think for someone who is like high performing and a perfectionist and is used to meeting a certain high standard they set for themselves, that was like so, so frustrating that I could not get my mind to do what I wanted and needed it to do.
and did you know or did you explain it in some sort of way? Like, did you tell yourself, "Well, it's because of X, Y, and Z," or were you told, like, "I have brain fog because of something?"
Yes, brain fog is like so ambiguous. And so, I mean, I think I was given a mold diagnosis. There was a discussion of parasite, histamine intolerance, not sleeping enough. So there's like little things and big things. But in the grand scheme of things, like brain fog could be caused by almost anything, food allergies. So I had kind of explored all of the things. And it seemed like I couldn't find any sort of pattern or cause or clear reason as to why mine was occurring.
Okay, do you mind if we go down the whole mold, food, that route for a minute?
Please, please.
'Cause people don't recognize that those can be things that we heal and treat without the protocols and all the things, right? So my question is, what was the point where you realized, oh, I don't need to treat those, even though I've been told I've had mold and parasites and like diet is an issue? What was the point when you realized actually those weren't the answers?
Yeah, I think once I kept going through the process of treating and detoxing and protocols and things weren't getting better. So the amount of effort, money, and time I was putting into healing those things, you would think that you would see leaps and bounds of improvement. And I might experience relief for a day at a time or like a very short stint, but it never was lasting. So eventually, my brain was like, something isn't right, or this isn't a full picture. And I remember asking like the practitioners I was working with at the time, like how much of this could be related to stress or emotions. And they were like, oh, it could be, but most likely mold is causing your anxiety. So it was kind of this chicken egg,
Hmm.
but was really given no direction on, okay, how do you handle that side of, the symptoms.
Yeah, I kind of forgot about that. I was told that too. Well, mold is causing all of this for you. And at first, especially if it's in the beginning, it might be a little bit of a relief, right? Like, okay, cool, there's an answer. I feel freaking crazy right now. Like, maybe this is it. But yeah, it doesn't actually change after doing the
Yeah,
things, the healing things. Yeah.
and I do remember, like, probably at my lowest buying, like, a at-home mold test,
Mm.
and I was fully expecting for it to come back crazy, full of mold, and it was pretty much so normal. There were barely any discoveries there, and then I was like, "Okay, this feels like my symptoms are so blown out of proportion from what like my environment actually is offering." So I think there were just a couple different things that kind of softly nudged me towards there being more of an internal conflict as opposed to an external factor.
And what was the turning point for you when you started to find relief?
Yeah, that is a big question. So from brain fog
Yeah, we'll start
specifically.
there. Yeah, we'll start
Okay.
with brain fog. Yeah.
Yeah. I was kind of reflecting back on the past year of working together, and I feel like my biggest turning point was when my brain fog kind of, disappeared. And I think for me, learning and understanding the phases of the nervous system. So I'm like, I think you called them, what do you call them in your course?
The red, yellow, and green or the
Yes, yes, the red, yellow, green. There's like the green zone of where you are calm, peaceful, totally regulated. There's yellow and there's red, and yellow being more of that fight or flight, and red being the like top of pyramid disassociating almost. I think when I fully understood what those looked like for me and like what I looked like when I was fully calm and what it looked like to be in fight or flight, what those symptoms were, what those emotions were like, what those thoughts were like. It was so, it just, that is like the moment that I think this work clicked the most in my brain. I think I was able to attribute my brain fog to being in that like top of pyramid red zone. And so once logically I understood that, like, wow, my body is getting to the point where it's disassociating. Why? Why is that happening? And like what are the things that help me maintain that green zone space? And how can I notice that I'm entering yellow fight or flight mode? And how can I get back to green before red? And there's just something about learning that I think unlocked a piece for me. And now when I'm experiencing brain fog or any sort of symptom, I think I'm really quick to go to what is going on internally,
mm.
what is causing me to not be in my green zone, as opposed to jumping immediately to, oh no, what infection do I have? Or what food did I eat? Or what have I done wrong? So yeah, there's something about that pyramid of understanding the nervous system that was huge for me.
Even as you explained it, I'm like, "Oh, that's a simple way of explaining it. That's great." Right? I mean, I know I teach it, but hearing it from you that you've learned it and how you apply it is important because everyone applies it maybe a little bit differently or just what works for them. And so, I mean, I'm hearing that you went from, okay, yeah, what food did I eat? What's causing this? What environmental toxin is in my home that's causing all of this to like, oh, let me tune into myself and look at, am I feeling something? Is there something stressful in my life? Right.
Mhm.
That's such a huge shift and also gives you so much power. It takes back the power from everything or every other practitioner you've been to you have that. You have the wisdom within you to do it.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, I feel like I mean, I've kind of been in the like functional health space for a while and feel like it's all founded on this idea of like your body has the ability to heal itself. But like coming to this mind body work is like the ultimate deep dive into like you internally have everything you need. That like if you can mentally and emotionally create an environment in which your body can heal, then it will heal. And
Mm,
so I think that yeah, that was a huge learning to me or like a huge realization that it's like, wait, I do have the ability to heal even when sometimes it felt hard.
Okay, and I want to touch on the food piece too, because that was a big one for you, especially with, I mean, with all things, but obviously, especially digestive issues. I'm sure that you were told probably at a pretty young age to watch what you're eating or don't eat these things or eat the, right? Can you tell us a little bit about like probably how stuck you were with food and where you are now?
Yeah, that actually has probably been the biggest
Mm.
tangible journey throughout all of this. So, when I first started experiencing chronic illness when I was a kid, functional practitioners eventually told me, cut out this small list of food. And that worked so well for me at the time. It really reversed a lot of the really big symptoms I was working with. But I think instead of going backwards and starting to reintroduce those foods, I just kept growing the list in which I had to avoid. So it just kept growing. And eventually I, became vegan or explored raw food diet. It just kind of became this whole vortex of food equals health or not healthy. And so I was constantly like learning, researching, tweaking, adjusting like what I was eating. And so at some point it's like, oh, I couldn't eat dairy, eggs, corn, tomatoes, bell pepper. Like the list was just so extensive, no high histamine foods. And it brought so much anxiety and like took up so much brain space having to focus on what I could or couldn't eat. And so I feel like over the past couple years, there's been kind of a slow journey of me reversing a little bit of that, introducing a wider variety of foods. But I think it's been relatively recent that I have experienced, I would say, like true food freedom. So, not like, oh, I'm going to eat gluten today, knowing it will hurt, but like knowing that gluten isn't bad and I don't have to anticipate it doing something bad.
Mm,
So, I think, yeah, that's been a huge journey and one that, like, even my friends and family have been kind of in awe of.
really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, going from someone who is vegan to, eating anything on a menu is it's pretty it's a pretty big jump.
Yeah. And releases so much pressure and anxiety, right? Because we eat multiple times a day. And if you're so focused or worried about what you're going to or not going to eat or how it's going to affect you, I mean, it takes over your life or it can.
Mhm. Yes, totally, and that was definitely the spot I was in.
Yeah. Okay. Were there any key moments in the past year that stood out to you along this journey?
Yes, I think we talked about, like, the brain fog shifting, that was a
Yeah.
huge one. I think the shift in my digestive symptoms too.
Uh-huh.
Going from like I mean, I could never even count on like one hand how many good stomach days I was having in a week to mostly experiencing good days and now being able to notice like when I'm having bad days, it's most likely tied to stress or anxiety or something that I just haven't fully worked through in myself. I mean, that is like, I probably don't give myself or my body enough credit for like how big of a deal that was. So, yeah, I feel like that was a huge piece. And I think just in general, like this isn't a moment, but I think general safety in my body has been like such a big shift and like such a big change in just like being my own source of peace or regulation and not like having to rely on other people to provide that for me has been such a big change. So I feel like those are the things that stood out the most, some like physical ones, but also some of them more emotional ones.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure it goes together, right? Like you've been working through things in your life and emotional stressors, and that helps you create the safety. But I guess actually, I want to hear from you because that idea of, okay, creating safety in our bodies for someone who's just starting this, they might not understand what that means. And obviously, it means something different for all of us. So, what does that actually mean to you? How did you do that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I feel like being able to be kind of just mention this, but like your own source of comfort or calm. I think I was always relying on doing well or performing or getting validation from someone or someone expressing love to me for me to be able to experience that for myself. So when I think of like creating safety in my body, it's like being comfortable, not always beating myself down or being critical of myself and like being able to get to that place without someone else telling me you are good or you are good enough. Like I was able to generate that on my own. And I think part of that too is like the symptom piece of like not seeing my body as broken, that like my body isn't in a dangerous place. Like my environment isn't dangerous, my brain isn't dangerous, my body isn't dangerous. Like I can rest and be calm. I think, yeah, that was like it was a hard practice for me to build. But I feel like that's been a big shift.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when you can do that, it's kind of the goal of regulating yourself, regardless of chronic symptoms or not, right? Being able to be with you and create that space that you feel comfortable in, right?
Hmm.
Like, yeah, it's important to get validation and love from others. Of course, we're humans, but not to rely on it. And you've mentioned a couple of times, like I noticed, striving for more or really wanting to achieve more or be good at something, right? That's been something you've worked through too. Did you recognize those patterns before this work, or is this something you've come to?
Yeah, I think those have kind of been lifelong struggles. So things that I have dealt with. I don't think I attached them to physical symptoms until
Mm.
starting to do this work. But yeah, the idea of like always have to be doing something or being a perfectionist or having high standards or expectations of myself. Yeah, those are definitely lifelong struggles. But I will say, I think this idea of authenticity we've talked a lot about over the past year, but this idea of not having to operate in the framework of how I feel like I'm supposed to act or perform, and
Mhm.
like actually making steps and strides to do what is authentic to me, respond in a way that feels authentic and true to my true emotions and feelings. Like that is something I didn't realize was a barrier for me until starting to do this work. And it's hard. I think that's been like something I've grown a lot in awareness and like I'm still practicing doing. But I think that was also a huge emotional unlock piece.
Thank you for saying that. It's something we end up getting to, but it's not often like one of the first things we talk about because sometimes, takes a minute to get to that. But I don't think we give it enough like weight of how important that is because if you're constantly not being authentic to yourself and dismissing yourself and being critical, right? I know we've talked about that a lot of like how to come out of being critical of yourself. That is some of the harshest stress that we can put on our bodies and our minds, our nervous systems. And so relieving that can open up so much and for your body to feel safe. So it all goes together.
Yeah. The idea of like what is stress to the body, I feel like my
Mhm.
awareness of how large that list can be. Like it's not just work or not sleeping enough. Like it is, yeah, all those background dialogues, the unkind thoughts. Yeah. So I think as I've expanded my view of what that is, I've become a lot more aware of what's happening inside my brain.
Okay, so how has just day-to-day life changed for you?
That is also a good question. I think my days are a lot slower. Um, and that has become like so necessary to me. I think I wake up a little slower or I have a less pushy routine in the morning. My morning looks more like taking a moment outside and breathing or meditating or journaling as opposed to, rushing through my morning, getting from point A to point B. I think there's just been a lot more intentionality in my routines and what I say yes or no to. So much so that like when I do have a rush day, it feels so foreign where that like used to be my norm.
Mm.
So practically, my day is like a lot more peaceful. And then, yeah, symptom wise, like I feel like all of a sudden I have so much more space in my brain to think about fun things, creative projects, and reading or decorating my house. I was using all of that brain space to like solve or heal or fix symptoms. I didn't realize how much I, was missing out on the things that I enjoyed doing and spending time with. So, yeah, I just have a lot more fun in my day, I feel like.
Yeah. Yeah. More space without having to worry so much. Less anxiety, really, is kind of what I'm hearing too.
Yes, yes. Way less anxiety.
You've kind of mentioned this along the way, but I want to just ask, how has your relationship with your body changed over time?
I feel like I've had a lot more grace and a lot more compassion for my body when it's not performing to standard or, being quote unquote what I think to be healthy. I think I'm not quick to, feel like my body is doing something wrong or I have done something wrong. I think I'm quicker to think about, okay, how can I support? How can I
Mm.
create that safety or how can I um nurture my body or create an environment in which it can find peace or balance or relaxation. And yeah, so I just feel like in general, there's less like fixing um, and more compassion.
Going from, you said, asking myself what's wrong or trying to fixate on my body of what's wrong to how can I support it? I love that. That's huge. And that is such a big shift and one that I think takes practice and time, right? If you've always been looking at your body of what's wrong and how do I
Hmm.
fix this and seeking everything outside of yourself to do so instead of actually like figuring out or just asking the question, being curious about, okay, what would feel supportive when my body's talking to me? That's huge. That's huge.
Yeah, it is now that I'm saying it out loud.
Yeah. Because obviously, like, that comes with compassion, that comes from trust, right? You're trusting that you have the skills and tools, and you're trusting your body that you can move through it together if there is something that pops up.
Hmm.
Um, and I guess then I'll ask on that too, where you are now, you don't have to answer exactly, right? But when would you say you have symptoms pop up every now and then, not at all, every like, what does that look like for you and your symptoms?
Yeah. I would say they pop up every now and then. And I don't seem to experience them for the same lengths of time as I'm used to. So like the brain fog, it'll pop up every now and then, but I think I don't necessarily panic anymore. Like I know what to do. I know the routine. I know what's going on. I know how to heal. I know what practices work. You know, I know how to do the things. And I think digestive symptoms are the same way. Like they do pop up from time to time, but I'm starting to realize like that's kind of normal. Even people who are healthy or who I would think are healthier than me, like experience digestive problems sometimes. And like that's okay. That's totally normal. It doesn't have to cause a full blown spiral. So yeah.
Also, I wanna note on that I guarantee you there's not, first of all, like, what is healthy exactly, right? How do we define that? But then also, there's probably not a lot of people that are quote unquote healthier necessarily than you because of how well you take care of yourself. So I just even want to point that out, right? I think maybe just in general, yeah, sure, our bodies are never perfect and they're gonna talk to us sometimes. Okay. Is there anything else around your story, what we've talked about, that you feel like would be important to share that we haven't?
Yeah, that is a good question. In one of the original prompts you sent me, one of my favorite questions was, "What would you tell someone who is in your position now?" And
Mm,
I'm like, I spent a lot of time thinking about that
mm.
one in particular, And I feel like this idea of like healing doesn't have to be hard or challenging. When I first started doing this work, it almost felt unnatural for my regimen or tasks or protocols, quote unquote, to be so simple. Like sit down and breathe or journal for 20 minutes. Like those things felt so simple to me that I'm like, this cannot possibly be what will lead to healing. Like I have to be doing something hard. I have to be cleansing or, doing the things. But I think like healing can be easy. And that, yeah, I feel like that's like the biggest thing I'd want to share with myself or with someone else that like it doesn't have to be hard and it doesn't have to be challenging.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's super powerful because it does feel like, well, if we've been dealing with this and struggling for this so long and so hard, I mean, how could it be simple? And some of these practices, I preface this all the time with people. Know you've heard me say this, like, okay, this might seem really simplistic. Sometimes it just takes a little tweak around these simple practices and some shifting in how we think about ourselves and right and the emotions, but like the actual practices can look somewhat simple, but can be really impactful.
Yeah. Yeah. I think like consistency in those simple and small things is like what has led to the biggest differences for me. But yeah, it feels unnatural at first.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so along those notes, you could say something to someone who's listening to this and trying to figure out, okay, what is this work or is this right for me? Kind of hesitant, but like, tipping their toes in. What would you tell them?
Yeah. I would think if you're wondering if it's for you, it, it probably is.
Fair.
I think
Yeah.
for, I mean, even when I was little, I had practitioners mentioning like the stress side and how it can
Mm.
affect your physical body. Like, I think this work has been knocking at my door for a really long time. Um, and I think it's hard too, because I feel like there is a lot of information out there about,
Yeah.
nervous system regulation and somatic work and meditation. And it's so hard to know how to do it or where to start. But I think mind body method, it's like a very practical, tangible, understandable way to learn and put those pieces into practice. So, yeah, I would assume that if you are having symptoms that you have tried really hard to fix and you just can't, and you're wondering if it's, emotional or mind related, it is. It really is.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you for saying that. And thank you so,
Yeah.
so much for coming on. I know your story is going to help a lot of people who've been questioning or not even sure actually if their symptoms could fit this, right? And so these stories are really powerful. So thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
Amazing. All right. Well, we will see you all next week and keep healing with grace.